Doug Lueck, co-owner and president of System Pavers, and Janine McCormack, landscape architect and design training manager. We are super excited to be here with you today. We will share design ideas that'll inspire you and give you some direction to guide you. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the icon at the bottom of the screen that says Q&A. We will answer as many questions as time allows at the end of this webinar. So, without further ado, Doug, over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you all for joining us today in this modern arena for social gathering. We've all driven past a beautiful home that makes us think, man, I really want to redo my front yard, right? Ask yourself, do I love driving up to my home? If the answer is no, or not as much as I used to, it's probably time to change. But where do you start? What will make the most difference? The intent of today's webinar is to introduce the landscape elements that have the greatest impact on your home's curb appeal. The driveway, the entry walk, the courtyard, and focal elements. Let's explore each of these a little further. Let's start by looking at the drive wow. That's what we like to call it. For 27 years, System Pavers has built a business around recognizing the importance of driveway design in the front yard renovation. The advent of paver technology ushered in an exciting, highly durable, new material with a broad range of creative applications. Today's pavers give us the opportunity to make a comprehensive project design statement. Their tremendous variety allows them to become part of the home's aesthetic, no longer just by complementing the home's color palette, but by reinforcing the home's architectural style. Is your home's architectural style traditional, such as Mediterranean, Craftsman, Colonial? Or is it contemporary, like mid-century modern, California Ranch, or Shed? If the home had a voice, it would choose based on its original authentic design style category. But we folks are the ones that buy the home, so we get a say in the matter too, which is how transitional style makes its way into the fold. Traditional pavers are typically variegated in color and have a tumbled or slate top finish and resemble old world cobble or textured cut stone. Contemporary pavers are typically monochromatic in color and smooth and laid in a clean, more linear look like you see here. Then there is the transitional look, which is a blend of the two. You might look at using the textured, tumbled stones found in the traditional camp, but lose the curvilinear design. Or you might look to use the monochromatic coloring of contemporary, but choose a random pattern over linear. Sometimes it's age and deterioration that pushes driveway renovation for functional and safety reasons. This upgrade will obviously improve curb appeal, for if the driveway dominates your visual impression of the front yard, a deteriorated driveway is hard to overcome. Even when the drive is still functional, it's just a slab of concrete. It's not adding to your curb appeal in the way it could if it were pavers. So, for many homeowners, the decision to replace the concrete driveway is made purely because of the tremendous transformation and character that pavers can accomplish. Color choices for your pavers is another consideration to maximize curb appeal. You do not need to match up the house color exactly, but tying into it looks rather appealing. The pavers used with this home are such a beautiful match to the colors on the house, giving it great curb appeal. The border ties into the roof color, and the field relates to the neutral colors on the front of the home. The colors marry the home to the land for a totally pulled together look. The borders on this driveway relate to the garage doors, and the beige colors in the field tie into the stone on the front of the home. Another alternative to choosing the color for your hardscape would be for it to contrast what you see on the home. Since this home is red brick, it would have been overwhelming to put in red pavers. Instead, the contrasting gray and charcoal pavers add more elegance to the home's appearance. Functionality also plays a part in curb appeal. How is the driveway performing with regards to functionality? Is there enough room to open car doors without banging them? We've all had that unfortunate incident. Can you exit the car door without needing to step into the grass or planter? It can greatly improve driveway circulation to extend the driveway 18 to 24 inches on both sides of the garage openings. It may be tempting to widen your driveway even further. We are often asked about widening the driveway so that a 2-car driveway can fit 3 cars. The caution, when there is need to greatly expand the driveway, is to make sure you do not pave all the way to your property fence line. This choice always comes at the expense of appearance. Remember, today's goal is curb appeal. We always advise to plan space for a border planter along the property line. In the same way, we design room for a planter to help distinguish the driveway and the entry walk. And finally, we also encourage saving room for planters on either side and even between garage doors to soften the look and make the meeting of garage and driveway more appealing. Planning for these 3 strategic planters is how we make the driveway part of the garden. Planting creates definition and layering and helps the layout of elements to develop form. I'd like to pass it over to Janine. Janine, why don't you talk to us today about the entry walk?
Right on. I'm excited to do that. Thank you, Doug. That was an awesome overview on how the driveway can make a huge difference in the curb appeal that you present to the street. So we take that to the next item, one of the biggest opportunities for designers to make a re-imaging statement in their front of anybody's house. And that is, of course, the entry walk, my favorite. So before we get too far into this here, I'm gonna have you humor me just for a minute. I want you to travel back in time, really, as a child. If you were asked to draw a picture of a home, what items do you think would be included? Doors, windows, maybe a chimney, curtains if you were really good. And that's right, probably the entry walk. Every kid knew the path that invited you from the street to the front door was to the heart of someone's home. It was the visual cue that said welcome, and it has kind of become an iconic image of home. Unfortunately, as the driveway has become a more dominant element in the front yard, builders gradually stopped providing this iconic feature of the home landscape. The entry walk has been reduced to more of a service path, or a dog leg, if you will, from the driveway to the doorway, which is really only functional if you're actually parking in the driveway. So without an entry walk, visitors are forced to fight through the driveway of parked cars and make their way along the side of the garage wall up to the front door. This experience is awkward, it's uninviting, and rarely has any real street presence or appeal. So that's why the reintroduction of the entry walk to the front yard landscape is not only a functional improvement, but it also elicits an emotional response, which provides high curb appeal return for your renovation dollars. A property with an entry walk subconsciously reinforces our imprinted image of home. It's comfortable. The entry walk feels different than a driveway because it's designed to reflect human scale, not vehicular scale. This human or pedestrian scale is relatable and therefore appealing. Let's look at some of the design considerations for developing an entry walk. As already mentioned, don't make it a hardship to get to the front door. Introduce a walkway at the street or sidewalk where people are parking. Entry walks should be a minimum of 4 feet wide to accommodate a single walker, but are more visually pleasing at 6 to 8 feet, which allows for 2 people to walk side by side comfortably. Of course, the size of the yard also influences decision. Notice how the stone pilasters here are placed to frame the walk entrance and the view to the front door. This reinforces what we call hero perspective, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. What we do see is what we sometimes call bringing the architecture to the street. It layers the built elements in the yard and gives the landscape depth. And it provides a chance to repeat or complement the home's materials. We often widen the walk where it meets the sidewalk. This is practical not only for circulation, but combined with the sweeping arc of the walls, the opening gate, this frontage virtually funnels visitors into the yard. So you'll notice again how the walls and the pilasters create depth with their architectural layering, and how the stone material gives a chance to create some visual interest. As Doug mentioned when discussing driveways, It's critical to separate the driveway from the entry walk. Even if they're running alongside one another, it's important for them to be visually distinct. Otherwise, the driveway becomes this blob spreading over the yard without really achieving any meaningful form. Another tip, do not leave the walkway slammed right up against the garage wall. Even when it's tight, leave some room for planting. It's amazing the impact an espalier trellis can create in just a shallow space. And we are all about amazing impact. Frame the walkway with a garden wall or pilasters. Vertical elements, again, provide an opportunity to connect the new landscape feature to the home's architecture, which creates design coherence. Curb appeal. Walls and pilasters are also a really important and graceful tool to help physically step the walkway up to the house entry or accomplish any grade change. If you're incorporating pilasters or a garden wall, a design decision needs to be determined for where along the walkway the pilasters will have their greatest function and greatest visual impact. Here they're located at the sidewalk, all the way out at the street, with walls that enclose the entire front yard. And while the garden is not necessarily part of the street experience, the handsome overhead arbor still makes a statement of entry welcome to the street. And the trellis on top of the wall allows views into the garden. Here the pilasters are located midway along the walk to enclose the upper raised courtyard. This location really works, as you can see, to draw you into the space. And finally, the pilasters are located right here next to the house, bringing emphasis to the door and the porch. You can see the different effects spatial placement can make. The way a walk is laid out gives form and structure to your front yard design. A linear and geometric walk layout supports a contemporary design theme. The simple geometry of this layout creates a symmetrical and axial alignment, which is formal, but still very contemporary because it's so minimalist. The very cool mid-century staggered or floating step pads are used here and are another popular choice for achieving a modern look. The classic winding or serpentine walkway is a very much loved traditional look. Keep in mind, when you talk about winding or curving, you don't mean wiggly, right? Pleasing curves are made by connecting sweeping arcs together, with both sides of the path running somewhat parallel to one another. And lastly, an axial and symmetrical layout is common for a traditional style home as well. Here, this straight path lends a formality to a garden-esque setting. So that is a little bit about a big topic. So Doug is going to take it from here and explore what can be done beyond the walkway. Doug?
Exciting stuff, Janine. That's outstanding. You know, architects design the home around the front door, so that subject is huge when it comes to maximizing curb appeal. But off to courtyards. Love courtyards. There is never enough real estate to do all your outdoor living in the backyard. Most people look at their backyard as the place for creating living zones. But you pay mortgage on your whole property, so why not use it all by reclaiming the front yard? Reclaiming the front yard patio and expanding the front porch for social function is definitely a trend. In social gatherings, settings, there are always people that break off into smaller groups, and having places for them makes for a better experience. Even in non-social settings, it's nice to have a quiet place to relax. At my home, we created a gathering space with a front yard fire pit that is a great space to gather around with family and friends. If it is allowed in your city, a fire pit can be a great place to gather and observe the neighborhood. When we moved into this home last fall, and once we were finished with our renovation, we were hanging out in the front yard quite a bit. We met many fantastic neighbors. It's a huge thing. It's pulling the neighborhood together. Sun and shade would also be considerations for reclaiming the front yard. The sun comes up in my backyard and sets in my front yard. My family like living outdoors. In the cooler months, we find ourselves in the front yard soaking in the vitamin D. Taking advantage of the sun's arc over our house, as well as maximizing our property for enjoyment, is why we reclaimed our front yard space. In order to reclaim the space, however, you need to erect enclosing arms around it to make it more comfortable and private, where you'd be willing to occupy the space. Therefore, a vertical element is needed in order to reclaim the space. The height of that wall is the decision that needs to be made. Most courtyard walls are 3 to 4 feet high. Privacy walls, the walls that likely enclose your home around the perimeter or boundary zone, are 5 to 6 feet high. Everyone has a different sense of what height is needed for them to feel like it is private space versus public space. If you're on a busy street, you likely want a higher wall than if you're on a quiet street. If you live on a small property, you may be concerned that erecting an enclosure around its perimeter will make it feel even smaller. However, it's opposite of that. The perimeter, the opposite is in fact true, is what I meant to say. Enclosures create expansion. Why would that be true? Because every square inch of space within the enclosed area becomes important. Every corner is revealed. The middle becomes inhabitable, and the back area stays respectfully behind the fence. The garden feels sacred from the outside world. If taller walls are selected, consider designing them with occasional openings or windows. Also, layering plants against a taller enclosure can also make a space feel larger than it really is. Layered plants alongside a wall tends to soften the effect of enclosure by filling the edges with billows of color and texture that brings interest to a landscape, engaging the eye and stimulating the senses. Do not place the wall or fence right along the edge of a sidewall. Set it back at least 12 to 18 inches to provide a planted edge. This is much more visually appealing. Again, the new wall feature will be enhanced with a base of green or even decorative rock. The hard concrete sidewalk against the courtyard wall is never a flattering match. Seat walls at 18 to 21 inches can imply a private space too and have the added benefit of easy seating. If walls are not in the budget, use planting to create a sense of enclosure. Designing a space people recognize as a new front yard experience is the goal. When people see you happy in your front yard, that is the best curb appeal. I'd like to pass it back to Janine to talk about focal features and hero perspectives.
Right on. Thank you, Doug. It is awesome to hear how passionate you are about your courtyard. And it really does make a difference in how people are experiencing outdoor living. I'm really glad you're living more socially. Getting to know your neighbors. Front yard living is really a healthy thing for you.
Yeah.
It seems like maybe you're not just the president of System Pavers, but you're also a client.
Wow. Yes.
I love your courtyard. It turned out beautifully. I thought it was brilliant to take out those old pilasters and make room for the fountain. I like the way you stopped the walls and didn't run them all the way to the corners of the property, and that left room for the landscape and garden to come in and become more dominant. I have to say, it, was like sheer genius, really.
Maybe we should get to the subject of focal elements, Janine.
So this will be today's last topic for creating curb appeal. A look at using hero perspective and the placement of landscape elements in order to create a design focal point. A good way to achieve drama, and order and purpose in your design is to organize your outdoor space around a focal point. This would involve the careful location of a landscape element, whether it's a fountain, we see a lot of fountains, a fire pit or a fireplace, maybe a specimen tree or a raised planter, or maybe a piece of sculpture or pottery. A focal element can transform an unremarkable yard into a landscape that seems to be quite clearly, skillfully designed. Hero perspectives are the primary views or lines of sight through a door or window to the yard beyond. It is an important design strategy to place a landscape element where it will terminate this view and become a focal point. It gives importance to the space that that element is occupying, and it gives importance to the view itself. A well-placed focal element pulls your attention and sight out beyond your interior surroundings. It expands your sense of space. A focal point not only gives you a meaningful reason to gaze out a window, but it gives structure and organization to the design of the outdoor space. Other elements will then fall around these. The other things you place in the yard will be laid out around the focal point. It becomes an important way to organize space. And this order can be perceived as you approach the house. It says, hey, this is not random. This was designed. That's our goal. The strong axial alignment of the fountain in Doug's courtyard is placed on the hero perspective, framed by the pilasters, and then dramatized by the herringbone paving. You see how this draws your attention out of the house and into the courtyard? Something to note, the fountain's placement also stops your view before it bleeds out into the street. It keeps your focus and your experience within the courtyard. Not only is this a powerful visual and spatial effect from within the home, but this careful alignment influences perception of the space from the street as well. Ergo, curb appeal. You can see that same concept here. And again, the paving treatment reinforces the sightlines. The fountain here also placed to capitalize on a strong axial alignment and symmetry. You'll see the geometric paving, once again, adding to the whole focus that's on the focal point. It leads you in. So what happens here is a very small landscape space compared, right, to the driveway and the scale of the architecture. It's able to hold its own. As those trees grow in, it's going to be a significantly important piece of the property that creates curb appeal. This stone wall makes a dramatic sweep across the yard to place the pilaster focal point in alignment with the view to and from the front door. Both the organization of the space and the elegance of the element greatly change the appeal of this yard. In this example, the candle wall focal element is not seen from the street. However, as you pass through the pilasters and approach the porch, it comes into view. This wall changes your experience of the porch as well as the view from inside the house. Before the wall was built, the neighbor's uncomfortably close front door was a constant source of intrusion on the family's privacy. They kept their drapes closed and they rarely lingered on the porch. The candle wall's suggestion of privacy has given them new ownership of their property. Hero perspectives can also be used to control sightlines outside of the home. They help connect one outdoor space to another. Careful placement of elements can create a sense of movement as you, or perhaps just your eyes, move from one focal element to another. This gives the garden a sense of rhythm and makes the space feel more dynamic. At this modern home, the uplit specimen tree serves to pull your eye to the distant entry. It is a signal to follow. In the same way, while this fountain responds to the hero perspective from the front door, it is also aligned to draw your attention from the drive entrance. And so again, it helps direct the visitor to the front entry. We call this wayfinding. As we have seen, this fountain was placed to lead your view through the pilasters to the front door. But it is also located to create a cross axis within the courtyard through its alignment with the fire pit. Once again, this gives the space a deliberate sense of structure, visible from the street. Don't be afraid to go big. Scale the element to fit the yard. A too small pot or vase cannot command the space well, and instead it just ends up adding visual clutter. The element has to have enough weight and enough presence to feel right in the space. I mean, if you're plopping it right in the middle of the front yard, it's got to be big enough to hold its own. Here, the bubbling fountain is good sized, but what added to that was that the framing of seat walls helped to further enlarge and define this focal space. The space is viewed both from the sidewalk and from the driveway, so it's an important element. You can see how the views from the house come out, views from the door, really well placed and really a dramatic change. For a strong design impact, you want to make sure that your selected color for your element, which can contrast its surroundings. It makes a much bolder statement. The dark cobalt fountain pots used here stand out against the busy tile. And also notice, we talked earlier about moving the walkway away from the garage wall. See what can be accomplished here? That's amazing. A focal element can be a group of elements, like 3 pots in a row or a group. If you are designing for curb appeal, consider what will actually be noticeable from the street. A single pot here would not have been effective. If you're going to group items as an element, always use an odd number. 2 items don't make a group. 3 is the number most often used for grouped elements. Here, the 3 pots mimic the home's window arrangement. Elements are the chance for a homeowner to imbue an outdoor room with their own personality, with their own individuality, like the way a piece of art can transform an interior space. This can really make the yard distinctive and unique, memorable. When the element features movement and a sensory-rich component like water or fire, it deepens the interest even greater in the garden as viewed from the street. So that is a very quick look at some of the landscape features that in our experience are big players in transforming the neglected or nondescript frontage into one that draws attention, one that has clearly been designed to achieve a unified relationship between the yard and the home, a landscape that enhances the home while it appeals to the street. And so we're hoping that this discussion has triggered some questions for you. Questions on driveways, entry walkways, front yard patios or courtyards, and on designing with focal elements. Or on how Doug's courtyard love has transformed him from neighborhood recluse into a, I love you, man, life of the party. So Jennifer has collected, you should be laughing, Doug, any questions that have been sent in. And she'll read them to us now, and Doug and I will see if we can answer any of them. Jen?
Sounds good, Janine. Thank you. No, the question about Doug's transformation from recluse to otherwise was not one on the list, so we'll just skip over that for now. But we did get a variety of good questions, so let's just jump into it. Are you two ready?
Sure.
Yeah, hit me.
All right, all right. So in no particular order, it all looks great, but how can I tell what it'll look like before it actually gets built?
That's a great question. So we've got a visualizing tool that our design consultants use when they go out and consult with you, whether they do that in person or online, because we have been running online appointments for almost 2 years now. We can pull up photography, or you can send photography, or we'll take the photography and we'll import it. And within minutes, we can show you what the driveway would look like, or in the backyard, we can drop in any of these elements. We can drop in courtyard walls, fire pits, water features, to give you a good sense of what it looks like. It's pretty amazing, and you can sit there over the shoulder and say, hey, let's try this, let's try that, and it just moves around, and within minutes you can see it. So great question.
All right. Next one, this relates to something you just said, Doug. You mentioned that we've been online for 2 years, and a question did come in. Keeping in mind the time that we're living in right now, can, as System Pavers, perform online appointments, or do we need to meet face-to-face?
Yeah, no, we can handle it online. You can be safe. You don't have to worry about catching COVID-19. Come August, it'll be 2 years that we started meeting with people online. And personally, I feel it's the best way to talk to somebody about their property. I look at it from both as a homeowner, which I am, and a person who's had home improvements, and from our side. When you look at the property online, you actually have the greatest opportunity to step back and look at the big picture, which is what we want to know. We want to know, how do you plan on using the space now? But as your family grows, your needs are going to change. And what is that going to look like 5 years from now, so that we can build it, so that things can be added, so that it fits within a good budget because it was planned out well. And so when you're online, you get a better chance to step back and look at that big picture. And it only adds an extra 15, 20 minutes to the discussion. When you go to the client's house, which we're happy to do as well, sometimes you get stuck in the minutia. I got this specific problem, and we're looking at that problem, and we never got that chance to step back. So we can meet online. It is amazing. I love the process. We've got some great design consultants that can handle that for those folks.
I think,
Right, so
Doug, I was going to say, when you're looking at the plan on, online that way, when you're looking at the site, it's like getting a plan view of the project, which we can't really get when we're walking through a space. And when we design in plan view, putting the elements as in from a bird's eye view. So it's a really important kind of reference for getting started on a design to assess the scale of space and how the flow of circulation is. So yeah, I think the online process has a lot of merit.
great. This is a question that I know you'll love to answer, Doug, and then I have one for Janine. How much do your consultations cost?
Zero, nada, free.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about right there.
We don't charge for appointments. Happy to come out and love to talk shop with people. Designing properties is what we get off on. So happy to come out and meet you, or get online and meet you.
Right, awesome. So Janine, a design specific question.
Yeah.
And do your best to answer this without seeing the space, but the question came in, what would you suggest for a front yard with a slope in a smaller space?
Slopes are always tricky, and if you're trying, it depends, of course, what you want to accomplish. If you're just creating a visual curb appeal, the slope doesn't necessarily have to be modified. However, if you're trying to live in the space and occupy that frontage, you are probably going to have to move into the use of retaining walls. And that's, again, you know how I feel about garden walls. You know how I feel about vertical elements. That's where all the beauty comes in, because you get to apply materials to something that visually stands out. So yeah, using retaining walls, we're able to regrade the frontage in order to create flat areas, even in a small space, that would be able to accommodate chairs or some other ability to be outside. And remember, even if you're not an overuser like Doug, I'm pretty sure his neighbors hide now. Just the look of being able to come outside and be present outside is a very popular appearance for a curb appeal.
Yeah,
So I'm not sure if that totally answered it, but yeah, retaining does the trick.
I would add to that in that my last house, I went with a curvilinear design, where this house I'm doing a rectilinear design. And my last house, I had a big slope in front of the front door. And at the base of the hill, I put a retaining wall to push it back a little bit. Some people think the wall should be at the top of the hill, but it looks good at the bottom of the hill. And from the street, you looked up to get to the street. So it was outstanding. It increased the space. We didn't get any erosion onto what we did down below the wall. So it was great.
Yeah.
All right, Doug, here's one for you. And this is a two-part question.
Okay.
I hear that System Pavers is more of a general contractor. Why is that important? And what kind of warranties do you offer?
So we offer warranty based on the work that we do. So the pavers come with a 25-year warranty. Turf comes with a 10-year warranty. Lighting, masonry products come with a 2-year warranty. They're using masonry to build those vertical elements. So that answers the warranty. We've got many different licenses. General contracting is one of our contractor's license. And the benefit of that is we can oversee everything that gets done on the property. The plumbing that might need to get handled, to bring a sewer line for a sink and a barbecue, to running electrical for lighting, for paths and steps, because we do an amazing design with outdoor lighting where you can romance the heck out of your space, where you like it more at night than even during the day. But I think our licensing allows us to do all things.
Right. All right, a quick time check. We are about 33 minutes in. So for those of you that only had 30 minutes to spare, you can feel free to sign off or stick with us. We have a few more questions. So if it's okay with Doug and Janine, I think we should keep going through them.
Sure.
Yes? You up for it?
Yep.
Sure, fire away.
All right, all right. So I want it all, but my budget might not allow for that. Can I do this in stages?
Outstanding question. And building in phases, we call it phased in. So we'd love to meet with you and know the full dream. And then we can design to that full dream, but we can present it to you in the stages that make the most sense. Your family might want to use the space in a certain way today and have a budget for that today. But as the family evolves, your needs are going to change. And that might be phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. We've had many phases for folks. So yeah, it's important to know the big dream, because you might end up having to do something twice if we don't understand the big picture. So yes, knowing phases and accommodating to those is what I think we specialize in.
Yeah.
And even to the extent that we can do the backyard and then the front yard, or the front yard and then the backyard, right?
Absolutely. And then multiple phases within each if need be.
Great.
Master planning is key.
Yeah. Okay, Janine, this one might be for you. If I'm interested in doing the paver and turf combo, what size pavers would you recommend? And I don't have any information about where this would be, so I leave it open to you to respond.
Right. Well, again, so you're kind of going for that gridded look, and it can be accomplished a number of different ways. A lot of times people are using the 2x2 paver because that's the simplest way to construct it, with just a 2x2 oversized paver and then the gridding in between. But that is not necessarily an easy walk surface. So if you wanted more than just the look and you wanted more function out of it, you would definitely want to create a paver pad that still, works to float and create a gridding pattern, but you may want a pad space that's more 3 foot or rectilinear, in character, so it can be more directive.
All right, our question, the person who asked the question just added more to it. So
Okay.
It is from a sidewalk through a gate to the side of the home to the backyard.
Okay, so that changes it up a little bit too, because you've heard Doug talk about not taking your walkways or your driveways all the way to the property line. The same holds for the side yard. The side yard's a trickier place. We always, we have such a narrow space to work with, typically 6 foot, right? So if you have a 3 foot walkway, which is kind of a standard circulation path, that doesn't give you a lot of room to get yourself some buffering. So again, the 2x2 sometimes does get used on the side yard, but if it were me, I would still lessen the amount of planting and try and maintain a 3 foot pad surface. So I would be doing paver combinations to make that.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a couple more. Let's go to the ever popular, do I need a permit for walls?
It depends on jurisdiction, but typically walls 3 feet or less, you do not. For walls above that, you would, and we would handle that for you.
Yep. And we also do retaining walls, which we didn't speak about today, but we do those as well to answer another question.
Absolutely do retaining walls.
Yep. All right. Let's see. If I had to choose just one thing to do in my front yard, what would I start with?
We might have differing opinions here, but the driveway makes up at least 30 to 40% of most front yards. So you'll get a huge impact from that. But having said that, most people have walkways off the driveway to the front door. And most times that walkway is not positioned well because, as Janine once said, they built it close to the garage and the house structure because it was less concrete, but it should have been pulled further away. It should be 10 feet away from the garage face because that's where you open the car door to get out. So instead you have to open the car door, walk up, and then get onto it, but it should be lined up with that. So that's the one that connects the driveway. The second thing, and I don't know, man, this is just as easily for me as the entry walk, because the architect designed the home around the front entry. And here the driveway is stealing the thunder, and we're in the driveway business. So I'm just kind of shooting myself in the foot for saying this, but that front walkway is a big deal. And we do amazing jobs. You can have cheek walls, you can deal with the grade in so many different ways to make it so captivating where it draws people into your property. Janine, you might have a different answer and more to add if not.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking while you're talking, and I guess as an alternative, I would almost say, I would probably say the walkway first, just because I think that changes the experience. However, if you already have, okay, I'll put it this way. If you already have a walkway that goes to the street, I do the driveway first. If you don't and you have the dog leg, I would go for the walkway first and come back to the driveway later, because the walkway changes your experience. Not just the appearance, but your experience. So for me, it's walkway, expand the porch, courtyard, driveway.
All right, good. Wow, you got a 2-for-1 answer on that one. All right, do you have financing?
Yeah, we do. We've got some great financing. We've got a number of options. The current one that we're seeming to do well with right now is 18 months, where there's no interest paid for 18 months. So until 2022, we ran with that option because, there's a little bit of a hurt going on with this COVID-19 and all that's been involved with it. So, but we have other programs as well. We do offer financing.
All right. All right, we're down to our last couple, I believe. So Janine, this one might be for you.
All right.
For fire pits, what is more popular, square or circle?
Oh, totally subjective. I can't even decide for my own yard. There's nothing I love more than the round bowl look of a fire pit. Okay, I rephrase that. If it's built into the ground, like the one you see on the screen here, then I like rectangular or square. The other option, though, is the rounded bowl, because not the one that, not a round circle that goes all the way to the ground, but more of a bowl element, because for me, that's super sculptural and it feels really modern in feeling. And it just creates a little bit of contrast from the other elements in the yard. So always square or rectangular unless it's a bowl.
I agree with everything you said. The only thing I would add to it is rectangular is quite nice. So when you're sitting around a fire pit, it's a great time. You know, who's the best storyteller? That's the person that loves fire pit time. You know, bust out the guitar, roast the marshmallows, that whole experience with the kids. We've got 4 kids. It's phenomenal. But the rectangular fire pit, if you have the fire in the section of it, maybe save a third of that rectangle for a tabletop. Then you got a place to put down the marshmallows and the chocolate and the strawberry and the wine. They're the things that'll be there. And so rectangular is quite nice when you put that little table edge off to the edge of the fire.
Yeah, I definitely think it's more functional.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it sounds like we need to hang out at Doug's house.
I know, right?
Yeah, that sounded great. So let's go there. All right. So let's bring this home. One question asked. Well, there's one about drains. Let's hit that one first. Do we install drains?
Have to. If we don't install drains and take care of the drainage perfectly on your property, then what we build, what anybody builds, will not last. So drainage is a huge deal. It's part of our site inspection, and it's part of what we do when we install.
Perfect. And then perhaps we should end on this one. What does an online appointment entail?
Showing up.
Well, on their part, yeah.
Yeah. So we use Zoom, and when you set an appointment with us, we'll send you a link. You simply need to click on the link, click on that you're going to join with video, click that you're going to join with computer audio, and be present. We will pull up photos from Google and other sites. There are paid sites that we can go and grab sky photos where we can actually measure your outdoor spaces from here in our office while you're there. We recently just made a sale. A guy is serving the country in the military in Guam. He met with us online maybe a month ago, and earlier this week, our design consultant wrapped up his project. It's going to get installed here in the near future. I don't know exactly when, but it was quite a nice renovation on that property. And so he's there, we're here. Property's in a 3rd location. So all we need is to be able to look at those photos. There are times when we get online that patio covers and tree canopies hide what we need to see. And in those instances, if you can go outside and take some photos, we can piece it all together and have a great meeting with you that typically lasts an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And it results in an amazing design. Not results. Sometimes it ends with a sale because it's a small area. Sometimes we have to go back and do some work to put together a beautiful design that can be phased in. But however it is, it can be done online, and it's fantastic.
And Doug, would you agree that regardless if the appointment is online or in person, that the potential client gets the same sort of service regardless of the means by which we meet? And that being that we really seek to understand what's important to them, the layout of their property, what their goals are, and then we design from there. Would you agree or add anything to that?
Nope, just we first seek to understand before we try to be understood. So that's absolutely right.
All right. All right, any last comments from Doug or Janine?
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I enjoyed this. I think Jennifer's going to close up with a way to contact us. We'd love feedback. This is our first seminar. You know, normally we might do something like this in a convention center with people, but now we're, you know, in a new world, and we're trying to give away some information that's helpful to people when they look at remodeling their front yard properties. And if we continue, there'll be backyard discussions. We're not short of discussions. We love talking shop, so.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, obviously we appreciate you joining us here today. Transforming your guys' spaces is our passion, you know, so it's really fun to share ideas and get your feedback on those ideas, or even just hear what kinds of things you're thinking about, and have an opportunity to be in contact. So it was a fun deal.
Awesome. Well, Doug and Janine, thank you very much for your time today. You guys did an awesome job. I know the people that were out there listening to you enjoyed it very much. And you can all see on the screen now, if you want to know more about System Pavers and what we can do for you, please feel free to contact us either via email or the number you see on the screen, 855-639-7754, or visit systempavers.com. And we thank all of you for your time and for being here with us. We hope you ended up with some inspiration and a little bit of direction. So thank you very much for your attendance. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye now. See you next time.